Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravamahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti. Till now, we have studied the four aphorisms, the Mahavakyas. Mahavakya is that which talks about the essential oneness of the Jivatma and the Paramatma. What qualifies a statement to be called as a Mahavakya? Because throughout the Shastras or the scriptures, there are statements. Some statements alone are called as Mahavakyas. Not everything in the Shastras is called Mahavakya. Very few statements alone is called Mahavakyas. Now, what qualifies them to be called as Mahavakyas is those statements talks about the essential oneness. Any statement that negates the duality is Mahavakya. Any statement that asserts the duality is called, technically it is called Avantara Vakya, the preparatory statement. So Shastras are fundamentally divided into two types of statements. One is called Avantara Vakya, another is called Mahavakya. Avantara Vakya means that which establishes duality, that which is the preparation for understanding the Mahavakya. So, what are the Mahavakyas? Prajnanam Brahma, Tattvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi. All these talks about what you see as two is not two. What you see as two, the appearance of it is two. In reality, it is not two. Just as, since we are in the end portion of the book, it is assumed that we have covered all these portions and we have come to this understanding. It is assumed. A simple example, if you take, when you talk about God, the very idea of God itself grows. At one level, it is one form is God. At another level, all forms are God. At another level, there is only God. This is how it grows. At one level, there is only one form. It is called, technically it is called, that's what we are seeing in the Bhagavad Gita also. That's the context we are studying in the Bhagavad Gita classes now. Eka Rupa, Aneka Rupa, Vishwarupa, Arupa. Any statement that talks about the Arupa nature is Mahavakya. So, and the same Vedas that talks about the Rupa, the division, is the same Veda that negates it and establishes the essential oneness. So, Mahavakya that we saw discussed about the essential oneness. Generally, at one level, people love to see God in a form. In one form only they can see God. If you can see God in Rama, you can't see God in Krishna. If you see God in Krishna, you can't see God in the church. If you see God in the church, you can't see God in the mosque. But then if you see God everywhere, what happens? It means you have started to see God in the stone, in the flowers, in the animals, everywhere you started to see God. And then when you when you start to see God like that, at one level you see God only in the good aspects of life. And then you go to the next level and say both the good and bad is God. So if birth is at one level, birth is God, at another level, birth and death both are God. So first you see God in a form, and then you see God in all the good aspects of life, and then you see God in both good and bad aspects. In fact, there is no good and bad at that level. There is no good and bad. There's only God, but still there is a seer and the seen. All these discussions is called Avantara Vakya. Distinct and different from all this study and analysis is Mahavakya. At least now we should be able to understand why it is called Mahavakya, the great aphorisms. It is great because it talks about something which nobody else talks about. It talks about something that is so unique only to this scripture. What is that? The essential oneness. What is essential oneness? What you see as two is not two. Technically speaking, the duality is established by the instruments. Shastra alone come and removes the duality. From a technical angle, if you look at it, the instruments establishes the duality. The senses establishes duality. The intellect establishes duality. The mind establishes. So all instruments establishes duality. You don't need a shastra to come and explain about duality. That it is known. It is known already. What is Mahavakya? Mahavakya is that which removes, which says what the senses or the mind or the intellect cannot see. What is it that they cannot see? What you see as two is not two. Since we have studied the theory of perception, since we have studied Maya and everything, we are familiar with this. We are very familiar with these ideas. And all these are an elaboration of the Mahavakyas. And the four Mahavakyas, Prajnanam, Brahma. That which enlivens the senses, the instruments is God. Prajnanam, Brahma. That Jnanam here is not knowledge. Jnanam here means that which enlivens. So Prajnanam Brahma means the enlivener of everything. The enlivener of everything, it is always enlivened and it can enliven everything else. That is Prajnanam Brahma. Then Tattvamasi. We saw all this. I'm not going into the Mahavakya elaboration again because I don't remember. But Anshu said, you have finished all this, sir. Go to the next topic. She told me already. Therefore, I'm just trying to cover it up. I don't know. Venkatachalam, Nalu Padistoma. I'm still thinking we didn't study. She said, no, we have studied. Go to the next topic. I said, okay. What do we do? She decides what I should do in this class now. So Tattvamasi is where the Upadesha. Ayamatma Brahma is where the Abhyasa, the practice. Then comes Aham Brahmasmi, the Anubhava. And then we saw there also, because of the problem of language, we have to use the word experience. For Brahman is not an experience. Up to this we have covered. So she said correct. So Brahman is not an, so even though we say Aham Brahmasmi, technically speaking, you cannot call it as an experience. So what is it? A statement that is made with the acceptance of the limitation. What is the limitation? What is the experience of Brahman? What that experience of Brahman is can never be spoken as an experience, because experience means has a beginning and an end. All experiences has a beginning and an end. You cannot have a permanent experience, is not possible. Also, experience happens in duality. There is an experiencer and then there is an experienced. So Brahman is not an experience. Aham Brahmasmi is not an experience. Then what it is? It's a declaration. It's a statement. I am. Aham Brahmasmi is an understanding that person has where it's not from bondage to liberation. Liberated, I was ever. That is Aham Brahmasmi. Again I repeat, Aham Brahmasmi is not saying from bondage to liberation. If the person says from bondage to liberation, we'll say, no, you are still talking about the dualistic language, go back. You still need to do more manana, you still need to do a lot of nididhyasana, because you are still talking about it as an experience. What is that experience you are talking about? From bondage to liberation. So what is Aham Brahmasmi? Aham Brahmasmi is to say there was never a thing called bondage. That is Aham Brahmasmi. Now how can you experience that? That cannot be an experience. Therefore, that state of enlightenment, the fourth Mahavakya, Aham Brahmasmi. Asmi is present continuous. I was Brahman even when I don't know it. I am Brahman always. Even when I didn't know it, Brahman only. Even when I thought I'm an individual, in reality, it is only Brahman. 3, in Vedanta, the importance is not to experience, the importance is to understand. In duality, the importance is always given to experience. In Vedanta, we don't give value to experience. That's why Vedanta, in its core, is very difficult, because it doesn't give value to experience. The dualism gives value to experience. Why we don't give, why in Vedanta experiences are not given any value? In Vedanta, experiences are not given any value because experience gives you a false sense of reality. The only proof that you are giving to the reality of the world is what? What is the only proof to say that this world is existing? I am experiencing, sir. What is the problem? That's all. Here, when it comes to the world, experience becomes the most crucial determining factor. In Vedanta, understanding is the factor, not the experience. That is why if anybody says I have experienced, Vedanta says neti. Anybody says I have experienced, Vedanta says neti. Idallam basic formulas we should be thorough with. The proof of reality to anything is given only because we experience it. So whatsoever you experience, you verify it through knowledge, logic, and reason, and then see whether it exists or not. In the world says you are experiencing it, what is the need to verify it through knowledge again? Because you are experiencing it, there is no need for verification. Vedanta says, no, no. The very fact that you are experiencing it means you have to verify it. You have to verify it to see whether it is there or not. So upon verifying your experience, what would you understand all your experiences as? Upon verification, upon scrutiny, upon thinking, upon reflection, any word you use, you come to an understanding that all that you experience belongs to the realm of mithya. So any experience means it has to be mithya. But divine experience, sir? What about divine experience? Just because you give it a word divine experience doesn't make it any real. Therefore, in Vedanta, all that you experience is questioned. What is questioned here? Your experiences are questioned. And what is it that you experience? There is this world. There is the world. And here I am as an individual. And what is the nature of me as an individual? What is the nature of an individual? I know what I want, but I never get what I want. That is individual. What is the nature of the Jiva? It's very simple. The Jiva knows what you want. And you don't. What you want, you don't get. And then through various experiences, you try to get what you want, only to come back to the understanding that it doesn't happen. Therefore, whatsoever you think, the reality that you are giving to anything based on your experiences is not real. Sir, negative experiences I can understand. Positive experiences also. Negative energy is okay. Positive energy also. Vedanta says negative, positive doesn't make any difference. For negative and positive is your perception. The reality, it is the way that you see it is what you are calling it as positive or negative. In reality, there is no such thing called positive or negative. For all experiences belongs to one category. What is that category? The realm of unreality. Therefore, the next topic, the original being, talks about that which is not experienced, that which can never be part of an experience. If it cannot be part of an experience, then how will I know it? Yajnavalkya gave the famous answer. Don't worry. Swayam prakashate. It knows itself by itself. Because every other experience requires a knower. The eyes are seeing For the eyes to see, it needs an object. So the eye is dependent on the object. Upon what the eye is dependent upon? The mind. The object is dependent on the eye. The eye is dependent on the mind. Upon what the mind is dependent? The intellect. Because if the intellect isn't there, it will not know how to distinguish and say the difference. So the eye is dependent on the object. The object is dependent on the eye. The eye is dependent on the mind. The mind is dependent on the intellect. Upon what the intellect is dependent? A name that is given is consciousness. The name that is given for some word you have to give, some name you have to give. Why? Because if we don't name it, the only way that we can understand anything is by giving it a name. That is why as soon something comes, the first thing we do is we give it a name. Cyclone also has to be given a name, no? Then only for anything to understand, you need to give it a name. Therefore, for this, a name is given. What is that name? Consciousness. The word consciousness is not consciousness because it doesn't come under the subject matter of any experience. That which is not dependent upon anything, and upon that what everything is dependent upon is called the original being. Again, what is original being? It is not dependent on anything else, and everything else is dependent on this. That is called original being. And that original being is what the current topic that we are going to study. We'll study that and then we'll go into the meaning of it. Anshu, please.
Your original being. Your real being is the Supreme Self, the state of absolute peace and bliss. All through your life, you experience a constant pressure for gaining pleasure, peace, happiness. The pursuit of happiness would not cease until you reach your absolute state. This is a natural phenomenon. Every object remains restless until restored to its original state. For example, a coil spring contracted would exert pressure to return to its own length. Similarly, your desire continuously pressurizes you since you have moved away from yourself, your original being. And to get yourself free from desires and gain absolute liberation, you must return to your original state, attain self-realization. A mind entertaining unfulfilled desires will always remain agitated, frustrated, stressed out. Hence, religion has personified desire as the devil obscuring the divinity in humans. Christianity has personified desires as Satan, Islam as Shaitan, Buddhism as Mara, Hinduism as Asura. A human being has to cross over this spiritual barrier, desires, to reach the original state of godhood. The scriptures have pronounced the self within as that ultimate state. I am that I am, Old Testament. The kingdom of God is within you, New Testament. The greatest jihad is that for the conquest of self, Quran. I am the self in all beings, Bhagavad Gita. Self is God, Upanishads. Your real self, your original being is the seat of absolute peace and bliss. You have lost your divine status due to identification and involvement with your body, mind, and intellect. As a result, you are possessed with manifold desires. Your mission in life, therefore, lies in eradicating the desires and realizing your divine self.
So here the original being is about the obscured by the desire. The nature of desire is that which makes you believe happiness is an effect. Desire is that which makes you believe happiness is an effect. You do something as a result of which you will become happy. So happiness is always seen as an effect. Therefore, the question remains, what is it that will make me happy? If you see everybody, they keep asking this question. What will make me? What should I do that will make me happy? What should I do? So here, happiness is seen as an effect. Vedanta comes and says, happiness is not an effect. Happiness is the original nature. Again, ignorance asks this question, how to become happy as an effect, as a future thing. Vedanta comes and says, happy you are already. If I am happiness already, why don't I recognize it? Why don't I know it? Because you are looking for happiness through the instruments of body, mind, and intellect, you are not able to see your original nature. Because even as we are today, we are Brahman, we are not able to see it because it is tried, we are trying to look at it through the instruments. It means a different training has to be done. What? A different kind of training. What is a different kind of training? Not to see things through the instruments. Okay, if I'm not going to see things through instruments, then through what I see? That's why in the initial stages, we say, keep Shastram as the Pramanam and start looking at everything. It means what? Your instruments are no more a training that you start from the beginning. What is the training? That you don't look at it through your own instruments. And when you look at anything through your instrument, one thing you will not get. What? You can call it peace, you can call it security, you can call it happiness. You will not get. What is it that is there? The peace. Then comes the security. Then comes the happiness. The tragedy of human life is you do something to become secure. The very thing that brings you security itself is that which robs you of your freedom. So at one point of time, marriage is seen as a security. At another point of time, that very marriage becomes, I don't know, whatever it is, isn't it? Painful, bondage, whatever be it. At one point of time, wealth is seen as security. At another point in time, that wealth itself becomes a source of insecurity. Therefore, all transactions through the instruments have this Contradiction. You want to be free, you break from that which binds you, you break from that which chains you, and you want freedom. The very fact that you have become free starts making you feel insecure because there is nothing to, that protection is gone. So at one point of time there is protection, and that protection itself makes you lose your freedom, and then you want freedom so that you want to break from the protective layer, but that very protective layer you break from makes you feel insecure. In and through all this, the human being keeps asking peace of mind, isn't it? In and through all this, the question is always the peace of mind, the peace of mind. As long as it is seen through the medium of desires, there cannot be peace, there cannot be security, there cannot be happiness. We can hear this a million times, but we'll still go back believing peace, security, happiness lies from something there only. Why? Why we still believe in that? We have not moved out of the conviction that our experiences doesn't make it real. Once you need a lot of reflection to come out of this conviction. Once you move out of this conviction, then you are all right. You know exactly what to do after. But very difficult is to break. What is the difficult thing to break? Just because I am experiencing it doesn't mean it's real. Desires is that which stands in between you and God. We have seen this any number of times. Desire is that which stands in between you and God. And what is the desire? Happiness as an effect. If happiness becomes an effect, happiness becomes a hope. That is why we say desire is a hope for happiness. Effect means it's a hope. You may get it, you may not get it. But sir, I'm experiencing happiness. No. I'm experiencing happiness. No. The very fact that you are experiencing it means neti, not this. The very fact that you say I'm experiencing it, straight away you have to say it's not it. The original being is obscured by the desire. We have seen very elaborately in chapter 3 how desire is an enemy. We have seen that. From another angle, what is desire? Desire is that which makes you to do, though you know you should not do it. That is desire. What is desire? Desire is that force which makes you to do something, though you know that you should not be doing it. That's what is called as the desire. That's what Arjuna asks, no? In the 3rd chapter. What is that force me to do Varshneya? What is that? What is that force? Kamayesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna, Samudbhavaha, Mahashano, Mahabhapma, Vidyena, Mihavairina. So what is this desire? Mahashanaihi, Mahapapma. These are the two adjectives he gives to desires. The adjective that is given in Bhagavad Gita is Mahashanaihi, Mahapapma. The Upanishadic definition for desire is Ajnana, ignorance. That may be a bit difficult to comprehend, but Mahashanaihi, Mahapapma is easier to comprehend. What is it? What is Mahapapma? Mahapapma means it drives you to do, though you know you should not be doing it. That is Mahapapma. What is Mahashanaihi? How much ever you have it, you will feel the same. How much ever you have, you will still feel that you don't have anything. That is Mahashanaihi. Again, what is Mahashanaihi? How much ever you have, that person believes nothing is there. You cannot ask, why don't you? You cannot ask that person. What you cannot ask? Okay, you are having so much, no, what is your problem? That person believes Mahashanaihi. That is called Mahashanaihi. So, that which makes you feel poor always is desire. That which makes you do things that you should not do is called desire. Again, from another angle, what is desire? What this Vedanta does, it talks about the desire from various angles. Still, we will go back thinking desires are much better. Still, we will go back thinking that only. Uncontrolled desires only is the problem, sir. Controlled desires are not a problem. We cannot get rid of desire. So, if at all somebody will say correct, they agree with Vedanta. What is it? Uncontrolled desire only is the problem. Controlled desires are all right. Control and desire doesn't coexist. It's a paradox. Control and desire doesn't coexist. So, what is the desire? Desire again is that which makes you feel poor always. What is meant by that which makes you poor always? The example of fire. That's where the example of fire comes in. How much ever you add logs and logs and logs of wood can be added to the fire, fire consumes it and ready. Ready. Or what is in the human history, Agni got indigestion, isn't it? There is one story in the Mahabharata where Agni got indigestion. Abrahma, he became a vegan and then he got out of that indigestion. That's how the story goes. Because too much of ghee was given to him. That's the story, yeah? Who knows this? Otherwise, don't think that I'm giving stories. That's how the story is. Too much of ghee is given. And if you eat too much of ghee, what happens? Oh, something happened to you. So, after that, he became all right, I think. That's the story. No fire can say enough. So what is desire? A desire is that which can never make you feel fulfilled. The very nature of desire is unfulfillment. So there cannot be a controlled desire. There cannot be, okay, you can controlled unfulfillment, you can say. But still unfulfillment remains. Are you able to follow? Desire itself means unfulfillment. So what is controlled desire means? Controlled unfulfillment. It makes no. But then people believe that there is a thing called controlled desire. Vedanta comes and says, no. It is through understanding. It is through knowledge. It is through understanding. What is the knowledge and understanding says? Mahashanaihi Mahapapma Dhyena Mihavairinam. Vidyenam. Know this to be the perpetual enemy. It's not just the enemy for, it's not an ordinary enemy. It's an enemy that is perpetual. Perpetual means eternal enemy. Eternal doesn't mean permanent. Eternal means long time here. You got to know how to read the words properly. Just as the word Sahasra means 1,000, the word Sahasra means many also. So Sahasranama literally you need not count into 1,000. It means many. It means many names. 1,000 names doesn't mean actual 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 100, 900, 999, 1,000. Sometimes it can cross 1,000 also. So similarly, when we say it's an eternal enemy, eternal doesn't mean it's there always. Eternal means long time. What is the longevity here? That obscuring your original nature for a very long time. Is it actually obscuring? As though obscuring. If it is actually covering, you can do something and take it out. It's not actually covering. It is covering as though. That as though is very important in Vedanta. Cover panna madri irukkudu avladha. It is not actually covering. If it is actually covering, then something positively can be done to remove it. As though it is covering, what you need to do there? There is no covering, but you are imagining a covering. So through knowledge and understanding alone, you can eliminate it. Why? Because it is not an actual existence. It is that which is born of imagination. Understand the difference. If it is actually covering, you can do something. If it is imaginarily covering, what do you do? Is it actually obscuring? Does it have the capacity to actually cover? No. If it can originally cover, what becomes subtler? What becomes superior? Desire becomes superior, isn't it? Therefore, it is not obscuring as though it is obscuring. As though. அது தமிழ்ல சொல்லணும்னா மாதிரி இல்லையா? இவர் படிச்சவர் மாதிரி இருக்கிறார், isn't it? He looks as though he is educated, isn't it? He looks as though he is rich. He looks as though he is wise. As though நால என்ன அர்த்தம்? Exactly the opposite, isn't it? ரொம்ப படிச்சவர் மாதிரி இருக்கிறாருன்னா என்ன அர்த்தம்? What in reality, what are you trying to say? Exactly the opposite. Similarly, as though it is obscuring means it's the opposite. It's not obscuring at all. Since it is not obscuring at all, then what do you do? You've got to keep repeating this again and again and again till you understand it. But I have understood, no, why repeat it? You have to repeat it because the understanding hasn't brought about a change in the personality. I have understood, but I am the same. If you say that, I have understood, sir, but I am still the same. If you say that, you have not understood. I know it is dangerous, but still I am running behind it. What would you call that? Would you call that as understanding? No. But still the person can understand it because he is able to talk about it, he is able to give a discourse about it, he is able to even write poetries about it. Einstein said, a person can talk and talk and talk on a subject and not know a word of what one is talking. You can talk and talk and talk on a subject and still not know a word of what you are talking. That's what is happening whenever we talk about desire. That's what happens. We talk and talk and talk about the futility of the desire and still believe in fulfilling some desire. So what is the way out? You got to go over it. You got to go over it again and again and again. This going over it again and again and again is called manana, reflection. Going over the logic and reasoning again and again and again is called manana. Nididhyasana is a conviction and meditation. That's why we don't talk about Nididhyasana at all in this class. We talk about, I keep talking about reflection only a lot, manana only a lot, never about Nididhyasana a lot. Why reflection? Because we got to keep using the same logic and reason again and again and again till a conviction comes. Just as two in the mind, two in the fingers. Two in the mind, two in the fingers. How long the child has to do that? For a few years it has to do that, no? It will go to the school, learn addition, two in the mind, two in the fingers, and then 2 days holiday, Monday goes back. What happens? Forgotten. Again, start. Two in the mind, two in the fingers. How long to keep doing it, sir? How long? We know all this. We know all this. So just to keep it entertaining, some story also we have to, we keep giving some story in every week. So all the entertainment is what is the new story that is going to come this week. Rest of it is known already. And where to go for new stories every week? Thank God the Puranic stories are there. Endless, how much ever you talk about them, still much more is there. So thank God, whoever wrote those stories, thank God to them. They are saving the lives of many of us. Yeah. If they have not written so much of stories, where we will go to talk about this again and again and again? Therefore, what is it that they talk about it again and again and again? Desires are the enemies. Enemy means that intends to do harm. That's an enemy. Who's an enemy? The intention is to hurt. The intention is to harm. Then only that person will be called as inimical. Desire does that. Desire keeps. Desire convinces you at one point of time. Without this, I can never be happy. The same desire will convince you at another point of time. With this, I can never be happy. Again, I repeat. What is the nature of desire? The nature of desire is such that it will convince you at one point of time. What is the conviction it will give you? Without this, I cannot survive. I can never be happy without this. At another point of time, it will convince you. What? I can never be with this. Both are taken for granted. That's where buddhi comes in. Where intellect comes in now, this is where buddhi comes, this is where intellect comes. When you are convinced that I cannot live without it, that also looks correct. And when you say only way to live is to get rid of it, that also looks correct. Where is the problem, sir? Appo adu correct, ippo idu correct. Where is the problem? Keep moving. No. Why are you getting excited about all these things? What is the desire? This is what desire is called ignorance. Why desire is called ignorance? It convinces you the opposites and will not allow you to think. By this ignorance, it obscures the divine. It's not the desire. The desire means ignorance, and that ignorance is that which obscures the divine. Now, ignorance as such cannot be known. Diseases are known only when some symptoms comes out. Desire is the symptom of the disease, ignorance. So, wherever there is the desire as a symptom, you understand that you have the disease called ignorance. This is how it is connected. Otherwise, when you say you are ignorant, people will turn back and say, I am not ignorant. What do you mean I am ignorant? I am a literate person. I know so many things. How can you call me as ignorant? The disease as ignorance can never be known unless the symptoms comes about. What is the symptom? Desire is the symptom. At the Nididhyasana level, you will understand desire as the symptom. Then that itself is a bit high. Therefore, we come down to Manana level. At the Manana level, at the reflection level, what do you understand as the symptom? That's why we talk about the five. Again and again and again, we keep coming back to that five. What are the five? Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya, Bhaya. The presence of these five, the affectations by these five is the indication of the desire, and desire is the indication of ignorance, and this ignorance obscures your original being. This is how you work backwards. So, wherever this five is, it's problematic. Sir, but legitimate desire, illegitimate desire, we should not have, correct, sir? But legitimate desire is okay, no? Some desires are legitimate, some desires are illegitimate. Illegitimate desires, yes, correct. But legitimate desire is allowed, no? Vedanta says. What is the answer to that? Desire itself means illegitimate, full stop. There is no legitimate desire. Desire by itself it means all desires belongs to the category of all desires are illegitimate. You cannot have a legitimate desire. Sir, dharmic desire, sir. Somehow we want to keep the desire alive. Somehow we want to keep it alive. Somehow we want to keep the dharmic desire is okay, no? Adharmic desire and all, but dharmic desire to help another, to serve another, to do dhanam, to study, these kind of legitimate desires are okay, no? No, that's not legitimate. Finally, sir, what all Vedanta is saying from the beginning, desire for self, at least that is allowed? No. Why? Because you are that. You are that. How can you have a desire for that which you have already? Desire means you don't have it, you have to get it. Then only you can call it as a desire. Desire means what? You don't have it, you have to get it. Desire means that which is not yours, you have to make it yours. Then only it can be called as a desire. Desire for self. It is mukshatva, the desire for liberation. Gaudapada in the Karika, Madhusudana Saraswati elaborates on that. He defines grades of ignorance. And what is the highest ignorance? The highest ignorance, he says, is I want liberation. And when a person says, I want liberation, he says, this is the peak of ignorance. Why? Who's asking for? What is liberation? Who's asking for liberation? Liberation from what? Without examining any of these, the person simply says, I want liberation. Beautiful. Gaudapada mentions it in passing in the Karika. Shankara doesn't elaborate it a lot. Later another fantastic teacher of Vedanta, it's called Madhusudana Saraswati. Because of the word Saraswati, we assume that he belongs to this Shankara Mat here. Wherever the word Saraswati comes, we assume he belongs to this Shankara tradition. Madhusudana Saraswati has written some of the wonderful commentaries. In fact, okay, if what we talk is about 20% Shankaracharya, 40% is Madhusudana Saraswati, 40% is Vidyaranya, 20% is Shankara. We make a avial. Since you don't know any of these things, you will think all that we are saying is very original, isn't it? Elaborating on ajnanam, what is ignorance? I am in bondage is I am in bondage and I need liberation. Why we talk this language here? Because we have studied all the initial portions, and in the last portion of the book, we have assumed that we have reached the Nididhyasana level, and we go right up to the fundament, the deepest point that you can get. What is the deepest point that you can get? Even to say I have a desire for liberation itself is an illegitimate desire only. In the initial stages, desire for liberation we talk about. Don't worry, once we finish this, we will start again from part A. No. When we go to part A, introduction to Vedanta, we will start Mumukshatva and all that. And when we give some stories for Mumukshatva, you will be so convinced that it is perfectly right to have desire for Mumukshatva. Some stories will be given for that also. Somebody will be quoted for that also. Now, how desire itself is obscuring at every level. Break it up, break it up, break it up. Finally, sir, at least desire for, at least allow one desire. What is that desire? At least one desire, allow. What is the desire that you want allowance? Liberation. Moksha, liberation. Vedanta comes and says that is also ignorance. That is also ignorance. It means, I don't know, whatever it means. Your original being is obscured by desire. Desire, at one level, you understand it as through the symptoms. I'm just summarizing. At one level, desire is ignorance. At another level, desire means a hope for happiness. At another level, you know that you have a desire only when you go through these symptoms. So symptomatic treatment, looking at the symptoms, we understand the disease. At one level, you need to know the existence of the disease even without the symptoms. So what is the disease even without the symptoms? Ignorance. And that ignorance in the form of desires obscure your original being. And what is desire? So many ways of explanation we saw. All of them boils down fundamentally to ignorance. Ignorance means not knowing. Ignorance means imagination. In Vedanta, when we use the word ignorance, we don't mean it in the sense of not knowing, we mean it in the sense of imagination. Ignorance of the snake, ignorance of the rope produces the snake. The snake is the product of ignorance or the product of imagination. Imagination. So the word ignorance is in Vedanta is synonymous with imagination. So what does desire do? When we say desire is ignorance, replace the word ignorance with imagination. Desire, which is imagination, which is imaginary by nature, obscures your original being. That's all. There is no reality to a desire. It is a product of imagination. The moment you are convinced that it is imagination, solution is very easy. What is the solution? If you are imagining and this imagination is causing all the problems, what is the solution? Solution is very simple. Stop imagining. Isn't it? Simply stop imagining. But to get into the conviction that it is imagination is where knowledge comes. So your original being is obscured by desire, which is ignorance, and ignorance means imagination. And what is the imagination? What is imagination? That which is unreal, you give it a reality. That which is unreal, you believe it to be real. This is how your original being is obscured by desire. And all the great masters who have enlightened in various traditions, in various backgrounds, all of them said the same thing. They make statements, Vedanta, in the form of Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and all the other supporting literature, elaborates it, convinces you through knowledge and understanding. Where all system makes statements about the reality, the uniqueness of Vedanta is it explains it through logic and reason and convinces a person to take up to the path. That's the only difference. Otherwise, when it comes to the making statements, all enlightened masters makes the same statement. With this, we conclude the topic, your original being. We continue with the next chapter. Next.